So the new Abyss for version 5.7 has just arrived, and let's just get straight to it. Now the blessing is that whenever a character triggers any cryo-related reactions, a shockwave will be released at the opponent's position, dealing true damage to nearby opponents. True damage is something that bypasses the enemy defense, and this can be triggered every 2.5 seconds. It's nice to really have in order to boost your team's personal damage, but it doesn't do enough damage for it to be worth playing around. If we start off with floor 11, we got the Layla Disorder, so the buffs being that all party members will gain 60% Pyro and Cryo damage bonus. This is especially great for any teams that play around Pyro or Cryo DPS. Now for Chamber 1, we have the Monolith defense on the first half. We have 4 waves of the different clans of the, what do you call those people? The Saurian Warriors. And they basically spawn clockwise, starting from the front. We only have one male and one female elite warrior, and then it'll go to the right, eventually to the back and to the left. There is not really that much of them, just do enough damage, and then you can go to the second half. And in the second half, you only have to deal with 2 Secret Source Automaton Hunter Seeker. While there is the Natla mechanic where you can build the bar by being in the Night Soul Blessing state, you only have to defend the Monolith here, so you can take as much time as you need. The first one will spawn in the front, and then the second one will spawn all the way back. Once you're done, we'll move on to Chamber 2. Now, for the first half here, you will have a few waves. The first wave will be the 2 fungi. Now, the family has boosted resistance to Dendro and their own element. They do have like this mechanic where like if you apply Pyro, you make them enter the Scorch state where their attacks will be severely weakened. However, if you charge them up with Electro, they will enter the activated state, which causes them to be more enhanced. So if you do bring an Electro team, try to deal with them as fast as possible because I think one of them can actually fly really high. After you deal with the first wave, the second wave will be the Stone Shield Crab and the Bubbler Seahorse. Both of them will start with a Pyro and Electro shield respectively. However, unlike regular shields, these are simply resistance shield, which gives them 60% resistance to all damage until the shield is removed. You can try to play around the shield. Ideally, you should play around the shield and break the elements if possible to allow your damage to go through. However, if you do have enough damage, you can simply brute force it and then you will just move on to the third wave. Now, the third wave and the fourth wave will be also the Lawachol, starting off with the Geo Lawachol. They will have high resistance to physical and a really high amount to their own elements, and they usually start off after spawning by generating their elemental shield. To save time, what you can actually do here is go all the way to the left side because the first attack from the Lawachol will eventually leap towards you. So if you bring the Geo Lawachol all the way to the left and deal with him there, the Electro Lawachol will spawn immediately afterwards, so it will help you save a bit of time, and especially positioning if you're running a Circle Impact team. Once you take care of the Geo Lawachol, the Electro Lawachol will spawn in that location. So because the first attack will also be the leap attack, try to position yourself in between the Lawachol and the wall to the left side so that whenever it does the leap attack, it won't be going too far. Now the first wave, we do have the Frost Arm Lawachol that starts by generating a Cryo Shield. And I've already explained the mechanic just now. If you want to bring Pyro or any other elements to break the shield, that would be great. But simply brute force past this guy. And then the second wave will be the Vivian of the Lake, the Hydro Phantasm local legend. Now the difference between this guy and the regular guy is that he will permanently be in the enraged state, which means he cannot be frozen and it is also immune to Hydro. However, because it is permanently Hydro infused, you can easily get Hydro reactions through, such as Vaporize. The notable thing about the attack pattern is that it has generally 2 big attacks, which depends on how near or how far you are. If you are too far, it has a chance of doing 2 attacks. Either the shotgun attack, which fires like 3 shrapnels of water bullets, or whenever you're too far, it will charge up its hand and fire the laser attack. In order to stop the laser attack, you have to go extremely near to it, so it will basically cancel the attack. However, do keep caution, because going too near will cause it to do a melee attack, which the only one it has is this exploding or imploding move, followed up by the 4 paths of follow-up water spouts. So be sure to try to dodge this if you do have problems surviving. So just play around the mechanic and just make sure that he only really has like 3 attacks. Just make sure you do damage. If you bring a Pyro team here, you can easily get free Vaporize. And of course, be careful if you do run Bennett because he can trigger Vaporize on you instead. Now for Chamber 3, the first half, we do have Magu Kenki. He does take about 10 seconds to get up and takes no damage during this. However, you can use this time to regain energy with your elemental skill in order to charge up your burst. The only unique mechanic about him is that if you are more than 7 meters away from him and his floating mask is right next to him, he will basically use the Oni mask in order to prevent any sort of ranged attack. However, this doesn't actually apply if he's using the mask itself to attack you, so technically you can kind of use range, but ideally he wants you to play roughly at melee distance. Now, once he reaches around 71 HP, which usually is about this letter right here on screen, he will do the dual sword burst attack where he floats up in the air and, charges up and eventually slams down, hitting both Anemo and Cryo damage. You can iframe by dashing, but if you have skill issue, you can always use your elemental burst to do that. Until he does the move and transitions to phase 2, he will take no damage, so try to be careful. So usually after doing the dual sword burst, he will either one or two things. One is that he will either do like a charge up AoE sweep attack which does cryo damage, or if you are extremely near him, he is very likely to dash backwards to wherever you are facing towards him and leaving his Anemo clone behind. So if you're running Circle Impact teams, try to keep this in mind. And of course, after he dashes back and he does the AoE cryo sweep, there's also a chance that he'll just walk a bit after the attack and then he'll just dash like sideways back towards the center. So once again, if you play like Circle Impact, try to keep this in mind. Take this information and use it to your advantage, and we'll move on to the second half. Now, the first wave will have a Mirror Maiden, which has 50% resistance to Hydro. She does have ability to teleport by, you know how she teleports, but if you have a way to stagger her before she enters the polarization state, that would give you quite a nice benefit to prevent her from moving too far. So the Mirror Maiden enters the polarization state from this particular attack. When it puts these little mirror-looking things on the ground and you get hit by the attack, you will be marked with this little crosshair-looking thing on your active character. Within the next attack, the Mirror Maiden will basically activate a state, which is kind of shown by how her body starts glowing a little bit, as well as all the floating mirrors around her. The moment she enters this state, she is no longer staggerable, however she can still be affected by Frozen or Petrify. So if you are running a character like Jean, you definitely want to take advantage of that. Just try to not get hit by this particular attack and just take advantage of whatever you can if you do want to stagger her. After you deal with her, the second wave will be the Consecrated Crocodile with quite a decent amount of resistance, especially to Hydro itself. Now, after doing enough damage and after its HP is low, it will do this one massive attack which can easily be dodged and spawn a phagocytic block. You can break this block with one Hydro attack or 6 non-Hydro elemental attacks in order to break it. After you break it, you will absorb it and simply hit him while in that state in order to stun him for about 10 seconds and make him lose 15% of his HP. This will also severely reduce his resistance to a neutral amount of 10%. Now, the one tip I can give against the Crocodile particularly is that he does have certain attacks that does move, so I'll break into two. The two notable ones, the first one is that whenever he does this move where he goes like whoosh whoosh and spin and twirl and tumble, simply don't go anywhere. Because after doing that 5-hit combo, the final hit, he will try to roll back towards you. So if you're running a Circle Impact team, don't try to chase it, just wait for him to come back and you'll be daijoubu. The second tip I can give is that if you actually try to stay on his backside, especially nearer towards its tail, it doesn't have any attacks that's able to hit you, so he will endlessly simply try to reorient himself to try to face you. So if you do want to bother moving around and prevent it from moving, that's one tip you can use. And the final wave, we do have the Eremite Scorching Lawmaster. Basically, he will start by spawning the little pet, which in this case is the Pyro Scorpion. Kill the pet in order to stun the master and make it lose a lot of HP. I think 37.5% of the Lawmaster's current HP, and then the rest is basically a freebie. The Scorpion will have, it will take more damage to Pyro, so that is a big benefit there. And then we have Floor 12. The leyline disorders on the first half will be that the cryo damage dealt by all party members will be increased by 75%. Now, this is much better than the previous Abyss where it only buffs cryo normal attack, because that means any cryo-centric team will benefit the most from this. And the second half, every party member's Night Soul aligned damage will be increased by 75%. This is basically meant for any Natlan DPS. However, even if you can't take advantage of this buff, it's not that much of a loss either, and the second side I think is not too restrictive. Now let's jump to Chamber 1. The first half, the Overseer device has moved from Chamber 3 all the way back to Chamber 1, making his HP drop from 4.7 million to roughly 3.7 million, which is actually pretty good. It will always start off his move by summoning the 2 Hydro Laser Beams that spin around it, and it will have a bar above its head. So the bar will build up 5 points per second. However, every cryo hit you do to it will reduce it by 4. As long as you're able to do multiple hits per second, you can reduce the bar to a very small amount, and then he will enter the frozen flow state where it will lose all of its resistance and have negative resistance to particularly cryo itself. So if you do run a cryo team here, you are going to benefit the most and do the maximum amount of damage compared to a lot of other teams. So in terms of cryo units that work, there are quite a few. Risley with the normal attacks, Ayaka with normal attack as well as Skirk. You can use Charlotte's normal attack spam, or you can pair it together with her hold skill and her elemental burst. Especially if you have at least C1 or C6, Charlotte should be able to apply some amount of cryo even while off field. Ganyu will require a combination of all her abilities, her skill, her burst, especially her burst, and as well as a charge attack to trigger that. Kea at C6 will definitely apply it fast enough on his own. However, because his base duration for the burst is only 8 seconds, I don't recommend running Kea at all. And if you want a budget option, Layla's skill and burst combo is really good with her little stars from her shield and her burst. And ideally, use her passive by basically spamming elemental skill on everyone else to generate the stars even faster. Or if you're a Chongyun enjoyer, you can just use his cryo infusion from his elemental skill. Now, if you don't want to bring any cryo-centric team, don't worry, there's another option. The boss has a counter gimmick called the Counter-Strike mode, specifically for anti-Natlan. It is a separate hidden bar with 180 points maximum, indicated by this golden motif ring that is right around its body. As you enter a Night Soul Blessing state, it will gain 30 points, and maintaining the Night Soul Blessing will let it gain 10 points per second. You can tell that the bar will slowly become more colorful, like with a purple glow or whatnot, and eventually reaching to the top. Once it has reached its maximum and its cryo bar is at least 10 points, so it's still doing the laser attack, it will enter the Counter-Strike mode, which will push its resistance to 50%. But because this is the Abyss version, it will actually go down from 210% to 50%. And then afterwards, it will spawn these water pillars that track you. You can kind of bait the pillar to trigger away from the boss if you're using a melee character, so that's one thing you can do. Once again, credits to Jeff for this one. And 50% is not the lowest amount of resistance, however, it is within red shred range for the things like Chilonin skill or Kazuha paired with Viridescent Veneer. Now moving on to the second half, you start off with 3 waves of the Ectomisaurus. They have a decently high cryo rest, but there's nothing of note other than that. Once you kill these 3 guys, you have the Wayward Hermetic Spirit Seeker. She will start off at the middle for a bit before she spawns the 4 cryo clones, so you can use this time to basically do some damage before that happens. Then once she spawns, the best strategy here is that you want to break all the clones with any elemental reactions or blunt attacks to bring her back. So because she has 4 clones, right? You can also use any Masters of the Night Wind character to freeze them by using their scan ability, like Lali's charge attack or Auroron's aim charge attack. This will reduce their shield by 25% and freeze them in place. Granted, there is quite a decently long cooldown. You can only do 1 freeze until the whatever duration that they get unstunned. So my general strategy is that if you bring a Pyro team or Electro Aggravate related team, make sure you go to one of these circles where the clones are going to spawn and then just ready up your abilities so that it allows you to, if you're good enough, you can basically break 2 clones within a short period of time, letting the other 2 teleport to you. This should basically save you quite a decent bit of time rather than having to run around and chase for every single clone. I don't recommend chasing for the clone because it might be a waste of time unless you have a lot of mobility. Now, Chamber 2, the first half, the first wave, we do have a Ruin Grader. It does have a weak point mechanic and high physical resistance, but simply brute force, there's no strategy here. And then the second wave will be a single Ruin Drake, the Earth Guard variant, which there's no notable thing, once again, just brute force. And then if it does this charge up move, just make sure you hit the eye so that it doesn't gain additional resistance based on whichever element that did the most damage to it. The last one is the Construction Specialist Mech, the Numa variant. Once again, there is no particular strategy here, just simply brute force all 3 of these enemies. And on screen right now is a visual on their exact location, so if you really want to save a lot of time, be sure to try to strategize your position based on the visual. Second half, we have the Eremite Stone Enchanter. I'm just going to call him Jeremy for some reason. So Jeremy here will spawn its little pet, the Geo Crocodile. Just try to set up your abilities and kill the crocodile in order to stun its master for 10 seconds. It will, of course, lose a lot of resistance and more than 1/3 of the current HP. Now here's the thing, because the second wave is going to be the Cryo Wayop, try to delay your killing first. Make sure you make sure you lower its health to like close to low, but also not quite like 5% like that. And then make sure if you are running a burst centric team, try to get all your energy back and then try to just kill with whatever abilities you have without using your burst. Now this is because the Cryo Wayop will spawn next, and it will spawn about the back right side. Go to the Wayop, spam all your bursts. It starts with a trial move which saps your energy. The entire move lasts for 13 seconds. You cannot gain energy here. However, you can still generate energy particles, which is not a very useful information. The ward is about 111% of its HP, but to be fair, it's not very tanky in its own. Make sure you break the ward shield on time, then you will get like 90 base energy, which should be enough to give you all your energy back, assuming you do actually use energy. So alternative strategies, we have two. One is that you bring a freeze team, make sure it stays frozen before it does a trial move, and you can kill it before anything ever happens. Or you can stagger it in the footage showing right now with abilities like Xingqiu's Burst or Kea Burst after the wing is almost rested but not exactly all the way down. This will basically stagger it from doing the trials attack overall. And the final wave, we have two avatars of lava. They do have a mechanic where you build the bar on its head with pyro attacks. It will take true physical damage after the bar reaches 20%, 40%, and 60%. Filling the bar completely will basically instantly kill both of them, but if you do run a pyro team, it is highly recommended if you do want to kill them somewhat faster. Now for the final chamber, the first half, we have two Wayops at the same time, which Koyo is cooking something. So the left side, we have the Geo Wayop, and the right side, we have the Electro Wayop. Now this is where I recommend bringing a team that can break Electro Shields, because the best strategy here is to simply, if you use like regular abilities, make sure you use all your abilities early or before you run to the Geo Wayop, and just try to break the Geo Wayop Trial Shield so that you can gain all your energy back. This is because the Wayops themselves don't really have that much range attacks, so while you're focusing on the Geo Wayop to the left, the Electro Wayop will eventually like slowly move towards you or sometimes teleport towards you. So at that way, you can technically group them without really even trying. Just make sure that you can use all your elemental bursts first before you focus on the Geo Wayop. The alternative strategies, as I mentioned just now, you can also bring freeze, like you say you run like Furina Escoffier. Don't run to the Geo Wayop and use your abilities. You save your Furina skill later because Furina summons are stupid sometimes. Use your Escoffier first after you start the challenge, run to the Geo Wayop, then activate your Furina skill, and then you can start your rotation. Because for whatever reason, Furina summons take like a short 1.5 second delay to identify the enemy for whatever reason, and this has caused me to retry quite a few times. So yeah, make sure you freeze the Wayop first before using all your elemental bursts. And then of course the stagger move if you can do that. Once you're done, we'll move on to the second half. Now the second half, we start off with three, what do you call this again? Yamkasaurs. They have 50% Hydro resistance, but their attacks will propel themselves towards you, so no grouping needed here. Once you take care of all three of them, we have the freaking big chungus himself, the Konga Mato. 70% Dendro resistance, so if you want to run like Kinesia or something on Emily, make sure you bring Deepwood Memories. There's only a few notable things. The first move will always be the Spitting Laser attack, and second thing is after, I think the second attack after that will basically make it spawn these three fruits. Hit the fruits with Pyro. If you detonate all three, he will take 15% of its max HP as damage and stun it for about 10 seconds or so. If you don't have a Pyro unit, you can basically stand on these Pyro fields on the ground, applying Pyro to your character, and use abilities like Kazuha's Elemental Burst, or for Sucrose, you can basically throw the burst first, make sure Sucrose is standing on the pit to get the Pyro application, and then you stand at the center of the butterfly to let it absorb the self-infusion. So there's two more other things. One is that if you want to stall its attack, credits to Rayvon again, you can simply go to its back. Because just like the Consecrated Crocodile, it can only initiate attacks once it is somewhat facing you. So if you want to add a bit more time before he starts doing the stupid belly flop spinning move, you can use this strategy to your advantage. And of course, the belly spin move, it will basically puff its belly before spinning outwards towards the side of the arena. Just be careful, or just keep this in mind if you're running a Circle Impact team. Anyways, I hope you guys find this guide useful, and I will see you guys next time. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more endgame related content. And goodbye everyone, and I wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors. Peace out.